The night train wheezed through December snow, iron wheels grinding against frozen rails. Inside the last car, where kerosene lamps flickered and cast dancing shadows, Liza Quinn pressed her forehead to the cold window glass. Each breath fogged the view of passing pines, but she kept watching anyway, watching for nothing. Watching because looking back meant remembering, and she'd done enough of that. The conductor moved through the aisle, his boots heavy on worn floorboards. "Frontiers Hollow, next stop," he called, voice hoarse from tobacco and cold air. "Last stop tonight." Liza pulled the worn wool scarf tighter around her neck. The fabric caught on rough skin where the scar ran from jaw to collarbone. Her fingers found the edge of it, traced the familiar path, then dropped to her lap. Old habits, bad habits. She forced her hands still. A woman across the aisle stared, had been staring since Denver. Liza knew the look, curiosity mixed with judgment, the kind that came before whispers. She turned her face away, letting shadows hide what the scarf couldn't. The train slowed, brakes screaming protest. Through gaps in the snow, she glimpsed wooden buildings huddled against the mountain slope. Frontiers Hollow looked exactly as promised in the newspaper advertisement. Remote, small, forgotten, perfect for someone who needed forgetting. She stood when the train stopped, favoring her left leg. The limp wasn't bad tonight, just a slight drag that made her gait uneven. Cold weather always made it worse. She grabbed her carpet bag from the overhead rack, everything she owned compressed into faded fabric and broken leather straps. "Watch your step, miss," the conductor said as she passed. His eyes lingered on her face, on the scarf, on the way she moved. "Storm's coming in. Best find shelter quick." The platform stretched empty save for a single lantern swaying on a post. Snow fell steady now, fat flakes that stuck to her coat and melted on her cheeks. She didn't look back as the train pulled away, didn't wave at faces pressed to windows. There was nothing behind her worth acknowledging. The depot building stood dark. A handwritten sign tacked to the door read, "Closed after 8 p.m. Inquire at Edna's boarding house for arrivals." Liza shouldered her bag and started down what seemed to be the main street. Her boots crunched through fresh snow, each step careful on the uneven ground. The town slept under white blankets, windows glowing amber from fires within. Somewhere a dog barked, then quieted. Edna's boarding house sat halfway down the street, a 2-story building with peeling paint and a crooked sign. Light spilled from the ground floor windows, and she could hear voices inside, men's laughter, the clink of glasses. A saloon attached to the boarding house, of course. She pushed through the door into warmth and tobacco smoke. The laughter died. A dozen faces turned her way, taking in the snow-dampened coat, the scarf, the bag clutched in gloved hands. She kept her chin up, met their stares with practiced indifference. "Help you?" A woman emerged from behind the bar, gray hair pinned severe, arms thick from years of work. This had to be Edna. "I need a room," Liza said. Her voice came out rougher than intended, scraped raw from the cold. "How long?" "Don't know yet." Edna's eyes narrowed, cataloging details. The quality of Liza's coat once fine, now threadbare. The careful way she held her self-injury or caution. The absence of a wedding ring removed or never worn. $1 a week, meals included, payment in advance. Liza reached into her coat pocket, pulled out carefully folded bills. She'd counted them so many times she knew exactly how many weeks they'd buy. Not many. She'd need work soon. "You got a trade?" Edna asked, taking the money. "I work with horses, know some doctoring for them." A snort from the bar. Woman horse doctor. The speaker was young, beard patchy, eyes already glazed from drink. "That's rich." "Shut your mouth, Carl," Edna snapped. "We lost 2 good horses last month to colic. Could have used someone who knew doctoring." She turned back to Liza. "You any good?" "Good enough." "We'll see." Edna grabbed a key from a board behind the bar. Rooms upstairs. End of the hall. Chamber pots under the bed. Water pitcher gets filled mornings. No men after 8. No liquor in the rooms. No trouble. I don't want trouble, Liza said quietly. Nobody does. Still finds them anyway. Edna's expression softened a fraction. Breakfast is at 6, dinner at 5. You miss it, you go hungry. Liza nodded, took the key. The metal felt cold in her palm. As she turned toward the stairs, she noticed one man who hadn't stopped watching her. He sat alone in the corner, hat tilted low, whiskey untouched. When their eyes met, he didn't look away, didn't smile or leer either. Just watched, steady and thoughtful. She climbed the stairs, each step creaking under her weight. Behind her, conversation slowly resumed, but quieter now. She knew they were talking about her. The stranger with the scar, the woman who claimed she could doctor horses. By morning, the whole town would know she'd arrived. The room was small but clean. Iron bedstead, washstand, single window facing west. She set her bag on the floor, walked to the window. Snow fell heavier now, erasing the world beyond the glass. Good. Let it snow. Let it bury the roads and tracks and any path that might lead back to what she'd left. She unwound the scarf, let it pool on the bed. In the mirror above the washstand, the scar showed stark against pale skin. Still ugly after 2 years. Still the first thing people saw. Downstairs, a door slammed. Men's voices rose in farewell. She pressed her ear to the floor, listening to boots on boards, chairs scraping. Edna calling last drinks. The lonely man from the corner. Had he left too? She couldn't tell. Liza unpacked slowly. 2 dresses, both mended multiple times. A heavy shawl. Undergarments worn soft. At the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth. Her veterinary instruments. Forceps and fleams. Tooth rasps and hoof knives. Her father's tools. The only inheritance that mattered. The only proof she was what she claimed. She arranged them on the washstand, running fingers over familiar steel. These had saved her once. Might save her again. If the town gave her a chance. If they could see past the scar and the limp and whatever stories would spring up about her by week's end. A knock at the door made her freeze. Too late for visitors. Too early for trouble. Unless trouble had already found her. "It's Edna," came the voice. "Brought extra blankets." Liza opened the door a crack. The older woman stood in the hallway. Arms full of quilts. Face unreadable. "Noticed you favoring that leg," Edna said. "Cold makes old injuries worse. These'll help." She handed over the blankets before Liza could respond. They smelled of cedar and lye soap. Clean and comforting. "That man downstairs," Liza started, then stopped. Asking questions invited questions in return. "Bo Ramsey," Edna supplied anyway. "Runs cattle outside town. Quiet sort. Keeps his own counsel. He asked about you." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing to tell yet. Is there—" Edna paused at the stairs. "Word of advice. This town's small but not unkind. Give folks a chance to know you before you decide we're all against you." After she left, Liza bolted the door and piled the blankets on the bed. She lay fully dressed on top of them. Boots still on, coat within reach. Old habits again. Hard to break even when breaking them might mean healing. Outside, the storm built strength. Wind rattled the window frame, sent snow swirling. She closed her eyes but didn't sleep. Listened instead to the building settling, to distant coughs through thin walls, to her own heartbeat slowly calming. Frontier's hollow. End of the line. Place to stop running or place to die trying. Tomorrow she'd walk these streets in daylight. See what kind of life might be possible here. Tonight, she just needed to exist. To be still. To let the snow cover her tracks until even she forgot which direction she'd come from. The train whistle echoed faintly through the storm. Already miles away. She didn't flinch at the sound, didn't wonder who rode those cars toward what destinations. That part of her life had ended the moment she stepped onto the platform. Liza Quinn had arrived in Frontier's Hollow with winter at her heels and secrets in her bones. Whatever came next, it had to be better than what came before. It had to be. Bo Ramsey sat in the same corner of Edna's saloon the next evening, watching snow fall past the window. He'd been watching since the woman arrived last night, though he'd be hard-pressed to explain why. Something about how she'd stood in that doorway, ready to bolt but forcing herself still. He knew that look, had worn it himself once. "You're gonna burn a hole in that window. You keep staring," Edna said, refilling his coffee. He'd switched from whiskey an hour ago, wanting a clear head. "Just thinking about our new guest." Bo didn't answer, which was answer enough. Edna sighed, set the pot on his table. "She came down this morning, early, made herself useful in the kitchen before I even asked. Knows her way around work, that one." "She say where she's from?" "Didn't ask. Figures she'll tell what she wants known when she's ready." Edna studied him. "Why the interest you never paid mind to newcomers before?" Bo traced the rim of his cup. Truth was, he couldn't say exactly. Maybe it was the scar, not the mark itself, but how she wore it, like armor and vulnerability both. Maybe it was the limp she tried to hide, or maybe it was just that he recognized something in her eyes. Same thing he saw in his own mirror each morning, the look of someone who'd survived something that should have killed them. "Miller's mare is still off her feed," he said instead of answering. "Heard the new woman claim she can doctor horses." "Claims she can." Edna's tone held judgment reserved. "Might be worth letting her try. Mare's worth good money, and Doc Pritchard already said he can't do more." Edna snorted. "You want to be the one suggesting Sam Miller let a woman doctor his prize horse after what happened with the last stranger who claimed to know horses?" Bo remembered. Traveling man 2 summers back had promised to cure Founder, ended up killing 3 horses with his remedy. Town had run him out on a rail, literally. "This is different," he said. "How you figure?" He couldn't explain the certainty, just knew it in his bones, same way he knew weather changes. "Call it a hunch." "Your hunches have been right before." Edna collected his empty cup. "But if you're wrong, it won't be just her reputation ruined. You'll be backing her." "I know." The saloon door opened, bringing cold air, and Jake Thompson, who ran the general store. He stamped snow off his boots, called for whiskey. "That new woman came by today," Jake announced to the room at large. "Bought flour, salt, coffee. Paid in cash, didn't haggle." "What'd she say?" Carl asked from his usual spot at the bar. "Not much. Asked about work. If anyone needed help with animals, I told her to check with Doc Pritchard, see if he needed assistance." Several men laughed. Bo didn't. Doc Pritchard was 70 years old and set in his ways as mountain stone. He'd no more accept help from a woman than he'd dance naked in the street. "She seemed capable?" Bo asked quietly. Jake shrugged. "Hard to say. She's got steady hands. I'll give her that. And she knew what questions to ask about the feed grain. But that scar," he shook his head, "makes you wonder what happened." "Makes you wonder if it's any of your business," Edna said sharply. The door opened again. This time, it was her. Liza Quinn. Snow dusting her shoulders, that worn scarf wrapped high. She paused just inside, taking in the full room, the sudden silence. Her chin lifted slightly. Not defiance exactly, but determination. "Evening, Mrs. Edna," she said. "I finished the mending you mentioned. Shirts are on your kitchen table." "Didn't ask you to do that," Edna replied, but her tone was pleased. "Needed doing." Liza's eyes swept the room, paused briefly on Bo, moved on. "I heard there's a horse off its feed, Miller's mare." "What's it to you?" Carl challenged. She turned that steady gaze on him. "Thought I might help, if Mr. Miller's amenable." No charge if I can't fix what ails her. And if you make her worse, then I'll leave town. Simple as that. No hedging, no excuses. Bo stood. The room watched him cross to where she stood, noticed how she didn't step back despite his height advantage. I know Miller, he said. I could speak to him, if you're serious about helping. She studied his face, looking for something. Mockery, maybe, or condescension. Finding neither. She nodded. I'm serious. When? Tomorrow morning. If the storm breaks, his place is 3 miles out. I can walk 3 miles. Not in this snow, not with that leg. Her jaw tightened. He'd overstepped, mentioning what she tried to hide, but she didn't deny it, just lifted her chin higher. Then how? I'll bring a spare horse. Can you ride? Well enough. He touched his hat brim, headed for the door, paused with his hand on the latch. Name's Bo Ramsey. I know, she said. Edna told me. Outside, snow fell lighter now, clouds breaking to show stars. Bo walked to where his horse waited, patient under the livery overhang. He'd made a decision in that saloon, thrown his lot in with a stranger. Edna was right. If this went wrong, they'd both pay for it. But he remembered another night, 5 years back, different town, different circumstances, him standing in a doorway much like she had, wounded and wary, waiting for someone to either help or hurt. An old rancher had taken a chance on him then, given him work and time to heal. Maybe it was his turn to pay that forward. He rode home through quiet streets, planning tomorrow. Miller would be skeptical, but Bo had earned respect here. His word carried weight. If he vouched for her, Miller would at least listen. Behind him, lamplight glowed in the boarding house windows. He wondered which room was hers, if she was looking out at the snow like he'd been earlier. Wondered what had driven her to this forgotten corner of the world, what she was running from or toward. Not his business, as Edna pointed out, but he'd learned to trust his instincts, and instinct said Liza Quinn was worth the risk. Tomorrow would tell if he was right. Back at Edna's, Liza climbed the stairs to her room. The encounter had gone better than expected. No thrown drinks, no crude suggestions, just curiosity and one man's unexpected offer of help. Bo Ramsey. She'd noticed him last night, the way he'd watched without threat. Edna had said little about him beyond the basics owned land. Ran cattle, kept himself apart. But he'd stood up for her tonight, offered his reputation as backing. Why? She'd learned not to trust easily. Help always came with a price, spoken or hidden. But she needed work, needed to prove herself. If Bo Ramsey's support got her that chance, she'd take it, deal with the cost when it came due. Her room felt warmer tonight, or maybe she was just getting used to it. She unwound the scarf, hung her coat on the peg, in her bag. The veterinary tools waited. Tomorrow she'd use them again, first time in months. Her hands trembled slightly at the thought, anticipation, or fear. She couldn't tell. At the window, she watched the town sleep. Somewhere out there, a horse suffered. Such a small thing against all the suffering in the world. But it was something she could maybe fix. A place to start. She pressed her palm to the glass, felt the cold seep through. Tomorrow, Bo Ramsey would come with horses. She'd ride again despite the pain it would cause her leg. Face a skeptical stranger and try to save an animal. Build something like a life here. Or fail and move on. Either way, she was done running. Frontier's Hollow would be her stand, for better or worse. The decision settled in her chest like a stone, heavy but solid, real. In the morning, she'd be ready. Tonight, she'd prepare, polish the instruments, review what she knew about horses refusing feed, remember her father's teachings, his steady hands and gentle voice. Remember who she'd been before the fire, before the scar, before the long journey to this place. Liza Quinn, who knew horses, who could help, given the chance. It wasn't much of an identity, but it was hers. Tomorrow, she'd see if it was enough. The room smelled of old smoke and lamp oil, familiar scents that had soaked into the walls over years. Liza sat by the window, needle moving steadily through worn fabric. Her coat needed mending again. The hem had caught on something during yesterday's ride to Miller's farm, tearing along an old repair. She worked by lamplight, squinting at the small stitches. Outside, Frontier's Hollow settled into evening quiet. Snow had stopped falling, leaving the world muffled and clean. From her window, she could see the western edge of town, where buildings gave way to pine forest. Somewhere beyond those trees, Bo Ramsey's ranch spread across the valley. She'd seen it briefly when they'd ridden past. Neat fences, well-kept barn, smoke rising from a stone chimney. A knock interrupted her thoughts, soft, almost hesitant. "Come in," she called, setting aside the sewing. Edna entered carrying a tray. Steam rose from a bowl of stew, and the smell made Liza's stomach remind her she'd missed dinner again. "Figured you'd be hungry," Edna said, setting the tray on the small table. "You were gone past mealtime." "Thank you. I didn't mean to impose." "No imposition. How'd it go with Miller's mare?" Liza flexed her fingers, remembering. "She'll recover. Bad tooth was the problem. Infected, made eating painful, so she stopped trying." "Miller let you pull it?" "Took some convincing, but Bo, Mr. Ramsey spoke for me." Edna's eyebrows rose at the slip. "Bo now, is it?" "Mr. Ramsey," Liza corrected firmly, though heat touched her cheeks. Edna moved to the window, looked out at the same view Liza had been studying. "Known that man 5 years, never seen him take such interest in a stranger." "He's been kind. Bo Ramsey doesn't do kind without reason." Edna turned from the window. "You remind him of something, or someone. Haven't figured which yet." Liza picked up her spoon, tasted the stew. Good and hearty, with chunks of potato and carrot. Maybe he just believes in giving people chances. Maybe. Edna headed for the door. Paused. "That room you're in, last person who stayed there was a woman named Ruth. Came through after a fire took her home. Her family. Stayed 3 months, then moved on. But before she left, she painted over the smoke stains on the wall. Left the place better than she found it." The door closed softly behind her. Liza set down her spoon, appetite gone. She looked at the walls, noticed for the first time the slightly different shade of paint near the ceiling, evidence of another woman's loss, another story of survival. She stood, walked to where her veterinary tools lay arranged on the washstand. Her father's initials were etched into each handle. JQ for James Quinn. He'd taught her everything, back when the world made sense, before she'd married, before the fire, before she'd become someone who needed to hide. On the small table beside her narrow bed sat her journal, leather-bound and water-stained. She opened it, found a clean page, dipped her pen. Asterisk, December 15th, Frontier's Hollow. Asterisk pulled a tooth today. First real work since before. My hands shook at first, but the old knowledge came back. The mare stood still for me, like she knew I meant to help. Or maybe that was Bo Ramsey's presence, steady as stone beside me. He held her head while I worked, didn't flinch when she fought the speculum. Asterisk, Miller paid me, not much, but honest money. First I've earned with these tools in almost a year. Pa would be proud. Or maybe not. Would he understand the choices I've made, the things I've done to survive? Asterisk. Asterisk. This room is warm. That still surprises me. Warmth without fear. Silence without threat. How long before I stop waiting for it to shatter? Asterisk. She set down the pen, rubbed her temples. The headaches came most evenings. Legacy of the same blow that gave her the limp. She'd learned to work through pain, to hide weakness. But alone in this room, she could let the mask slip. A sound from outside made her look up. Footsteps in the alley below. Slow and measured. They paused beneath her window, and her hand moved instinctively to the knife she kept close. Old habits. "Miss Quinn," Bo Ramsey's voice. Quiet, but carrying. "Saw your light. Wanted to thank you for today." She moved to the window, looked down. He stood in the alley, hat in hand, looking up. Snow had started falling again, light flakes that caught in his dark hair. "The thanks should be mine," she called softly. "You vouched for me. You proved me right. Miller's already talking about having you look at his other horses. Are you always right about people?" He was quiet long enough that she wondered if he'd left. Then, "No, but I recognize someone who's good with animals. They're honest. See, don't care about anything but whether you'll help or hurt them. And people are harder." He put his hat back on. "There's coffee at my place most mornings, if you're ever out that way. The barn needs work. I could use an extra pair of hands, if you're interested. Pays fair." Before she could respond, he touched his hat brim and walked away. She watched until the shadows swallowed him, then returned to her sewing. The offer hung in the air like smoke. Work at his ranch, away from town's watching eyes. It would mean riding out there regularly, spending time alone with a man she barely knew. The smart thing would be to refuse, to keep distance between herself and anyone who might look too close. But she thought of his hands holding the mare steady, gentle despite their strength. The way he'd introduced her to Miller. "This is Miss Quinn. She knows horses." Simple, factual, no qualification or doubt. She picked up her journal again. Asterisk. He offered work, real work, not charity. I should refuse, should keep to myself, do only what's needed to survive until I can move on. That's the safe path. Asterisk. But I'm tired of safe, tired of running. Maybe it's time to try standing still, see what grows in one place. Asterisk tomorrow. I'll ride out to look at his barn. For the work. Nothing more. If he asks questions, I'll deflect. If he looks too close, I'll leave. Asterisk. But tonight, sitting in this warm room with good food in my belly and honest money in my pocket, I can pretend I'm just a woman who doctors horses, just Liza Quinn, who knows her trade and earns her keep. It's been so long since I was just anything. She closed the journal, tied it shut with the leather cord. Outside, snow fell heavier, blurring the line between earth and sky. Tomorrow would bring what it brought. Tonight, she had this 4 walls, a door that locked, work for her hands, and the memory of a man's voice calling up from the darkness, offering something that might be hope. The lamp burned lower as she finished mending her coat, each stitch small and precise, holding torn edges together, making something whole from something damaged. It was all she knew how to do anymore, mend what was broken, one small repair at a time. When she finally slept, she dreamed of horses, not the nightmares that usually came, full of smoke and screaming, just horses, standing quiet in a barn while snow fell outside. And somewhere in the dream, a man's hands, steady and sure, helping her hold something precious and fragile and alive. She woke once in the night, disoriented. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back. Frontier's Hollow, Edna's boarding house, the room that had sheltered another broken woman before her. The building creaked and settled around her, timbers adjusting to the cold, but the sounds were peaceful, unthreatening. Just an old building breathing in the night, keeping its occupants safe from the storm outside. Liza pulled the quilts higher, closed her eyes again. Tomorrow, she'd ride out to Bo Ramsey's ranch, look at his barn, assess the work, keep things professional, distant, safe. But tonight, she allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to belong somewhere again, to be known simply for what she could do, not what had been done to her, to build something new in this place at the end of the railroad, where the past might finally agree to stay buried under winter snow. It was a dangerous thought. Hope always was, but alone in the darkness with the storm standing guard. She let herself hold it anyway, just for tonight, Just for these few quiet hours before dawn brought back the need for caution, distance, and carefully mended armor. Just for now, Liza Quinn allowed herself to rest. The Hartley Ranch spread across the valley like a scar, all sharp edges and neglect. Liza stood at the fence line, studying the bay stallion that hadn't eaten in 3 days. Even from here, she could see the problem in how he held his head, the careful way he moved. Worth $200, Thomas Hartley said beside her. He was a hard man, face weathered by sun and disappointment. Got him from a breeder in Colorado. Now look at him. The horse stood apart from the others, head low, ribs starting to show through his winter coat. Beautiful animal, even in distress. The kind of horse that could build a ranch's reputation or destroy it. Anyone else look at him? Liza asked. Doc Pritchard came out yesterday. Said it might be colic, might be worms. Gave him a tonic that did nothing. Hartley spat tobacco juice into the snow. I'm thinking of putting him down, cutting my losses. Give me an hour with him. Why should I? His eyes raked over her, taking in the worn coat, the careful way she favored her left leg. You're that woman staying at Edna's, the one with the scar. She kept her face neutral, though the words stung. Always the scar first, everything else second. I'm the one who fixed Miller's mare. One lucky guess doesn't make you a horse doctor. Bo Ramsey shifted beside her. He'd brought her out here, vouched for her again. She could feel his tension, his investment in her success. Tom, you're going to shoot him anyway. What's the harm in letting her try? Hartley considered, then shrugged. Fine, 1 hour. But when you fail, I don't want to hear about it in town. Don't need people saying I let some woman make my horse worse. He stalked off toward the house. Bo touched her elbow. Gentle. You sure about this? No. She ducked through the fence rails, approached the stallion slowly. But I know that look. Seen it before. The horse raised his head as she approached. Ears back, warning her off. She stopped 10 feet away, just watching. The way he stood, weight shifted. The slight tremor in his flanks. The careful breathing. Hey there, she said softly. I know it hurts. Bo leaned against the fence, watching her work. She moved like someone who'd spent their life around horses. Slow, deliberate, telegraphing every intention. The stallion snorted but didn't retreat. She circled him gradually, taking in details. No visible swelling, no obvious injury, but the way he held his neck, the tension in his shoulders. It's not his stomach, she said quietly. Look at how he's standing. She reached into her coat, pulled out a small apple. The horse's nostrils flared at the scent, and for a moment, interest flickered in his eyes. Then he turned away. You want it, she murmured, but it hurts too much. She set the apple on a fence post, moved closer. The stallion watched her, wary but not panicked. When she was close enough, she reached out slowly, let him smell her hand. I'm going to touch your neck, she told him. Just touch. If it's too much, you tell me. Her fingers found his neck, pressed gently along the muscle. The horse stood rigid. She moved her hand up, toward his head, and suddenly he jerked away, eyes showing white. There, she breathed. That's where it hurts. Bo straightened. What is it? Need to see his mouth, but I think... She didn't finish, focused on the horse. Bo, can you get a rope, soft one? We'll need to steady his head. He fetched what she needed without question. Together. They worked to get a rope on the stallion. He fought at first, but Liza's quiet voice seemed to calm him. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. Hold him steady, she said. Not tight. Just enough so he can't jerk away. She opened her veterinary bag, pulled out a metal speculum. The horse's eyes rolled at the sight of it, but Bo's presence seemed to anchor him. I know, she said to the horse. I know it's scary, but you've been hurting for days. Let me help. She worked the speculum into his mouth carefully, cranked it open just enough to see, The stallion trembled but didn't fight. Bo held steady, murmuring nonsense words. "There," Liza pointed. "See it." Bo leaned in, looked where she indicated. A piece of sharp metal, probably from a bit or feed bucket, had lodged between two back teeth. The gum around it was swollen, infected. "Good Lord," he breathed. How did Pritchard miss that? "Easy to miss if you're not looking for it, or if you don't believe a horse can tell you where it hurts." She pulled out her forceps. "This is going to be unpleasant. Can you hold him?" "Do it." She worked quickly, gripping the metal fragment. The horse tried to rear, but Bo's weight held him. In one smooth motion, she pulled the metal free. Blood and pus followed, and the horse gave a sound that was almost a sigh. "There we go," she said, removing the speculum. "There we go." She cleaned the wound best she could, packed it with a poultice from her bag. The horse stood quieter now, the rigid tension leaving his body. "Give him soft mash for a few days," she told Bo. "Nothing hard until that heals, and he'll need this wound cleaned daily." She was putting her tools away when she noticed the stillness. The horse had moved to the fence post, was lip-nibbling at the apple she'd left there. Tentative at first, then with growing confidence. "Well, I'll be damned." Hartley's voice came from behind them. She hadn't heard him return. The rancher walked closer, studied his horse. The change was obvious. The animal stood easier, eyes brighter, still hurting, but the acute agony was gone. "What did you find?" Hartley asked. She showed him the piece of metal, explained about the infection. He turned it over in his fingers, face unreadable. "Pritchard looked right in his mouth," he said finally. "Said there was nothing. Sometimes we see what we expect to see." She kept her voice neutral. No point in making an enemy of the town's only official animal doctor. Hartley pulled out his wallet, counted bills. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing if he doesn't recover. Come back in 3 days. If he's eating normal by then, we'll talk payment." You that confident. She looked at the stallion, now working on the apple with determination. He wants to live. That's most of the battle. Hartley nodded slowly, pocketed his wallet. 3 days, then. He started to walk away, turned back. "That scar makes people wonder about you, makes them tell stories." Her jaw tightened. "I know. Thing is," he continued, "I got a scar too. Mine's on my back, where you can't see. Got it saving my daughter from a barn fire. Doesn't make me less of a rancher. Just makes me someone who's been through something." He walked away before she could respond. Bo helped her gather her tools, and they headed back to where the horses waited. "That was well done," he said as they rode. "The way you read that horse." "My father taught me. Said pain always shows if you know how to look." "Smart man." "He was." She adjusted her seat, trying to ease the ache in her leg. Hours in the saddle were taking their toll. "Mr. Hartley seems different than I expected. Tom's all right. Harder since his wife passed. But fair. He meant what he said about the scar." They rode in comfortable silence. The afternoon sun reflected off snow, brilliant and clean. She found herself stealing glances at Bo, the easy way he sat his horse, the calm that seemed to radiate from him. "Why do you keep helping me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He considered before answering. "You know that stallion back there? How he wanted the apple but couldn't take it until the pain stopped?" She nodded. "Sometimes I think people are like that. Want something good but can't reach for it because something else hurts too much." He looked at her directly. "Figured maybe you needed someone to hold steady while you work out what's hurting." The words hit deeper than he could know. She looked away, blinking sudden moisture from her eyes. "That's a dangerous offer. You don't know what you're holding steady for." "Maybe not, but I know what I see. Someone good with animals, trying to build something honest. That's enough for now." They reached town as the sun touched the mountain peaks. He left her at the boarding house with a touch to his hat brim. Same as always. She climbed the stairs to her room, leg protesting every step. Inside, she sat on the bed, pulled off her boots. Her hands smelled of horse and poultice. Honest smells. In her pocket, Hartley's praise echoed. Tomorrow, word would spread. The woman with the scar had found what Doc Pritchard missed. Some would doubt, some would wonder, but a few might start to see her differently. She thought of Beau's words. Someone to hold steady. The idea terrified and tempted in equal measure. She'd been holding herself rigid for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to let another person help carry the weight. At the window, she watched him ride out of town, straight-backed and sure. A good man, Edna had said, the kind who saw clear and judged fair. Maybe, just maybe, she could let herself believe that. Let herself take the offered steadiness, work out what was hurting, find a way to reach for something good again. The stallion had wanted the apple, had always wanted it. Just needed the sharp metal gone first, the infection cleaned out, the pain to ease enough to try. Liza touched her scar, felt the raised tissue under her fingers. Some wounds showed, others hid deeper. But Beau was right. Pain always showed if someone knew how to look. And somehow, without her telling him anything, Beau Ramsey had learned to see. The evening meal at Edna's boarding house was usually a quiet affair, but tonight felt different. Liza sat at her usual spot at the end of the long table, aware of the sideways glances, the whispered conversations that stopped when she looked up. "Pass the bread," old Henry Fitzgerald said, one of the few who treated her normal. He'd been a telegraph operator before his hands got too shaky, now lived on a small pension. She passed the basket, noticed how conversations gradually resumed. Talk of winter wheat prices, the railroad's schedule changes, whose roof might not last another snow, normal things. She let the voices wash over her, focused on her stew. "Heard you fixed Hartley's prize stallion," Jake Thompson said suddenly, addressing her directly. "Tom was in the store earlier, buying grain. Said the horse was already eating." "Just needed help," Liza replied carefully. "Help Pritchard couldn't give," Carl muttered from his end of the table. The room went quiet. Everyone knew Doc Pritchard had declared the horse beyond saving. For a stranger, a woman, to succeed where he'd failed was bound to cause ripples. "Maybe Doc just had an off day," suggested Matthew Barnes. The banker, always the peacemaker. "Maybe," Liza agreed, though they all knew better. She'd been careful not to criticize Pritchard publicly, but word had spread anyway about what she'd found, what he'd missed. Beau entered then, bringing cold air and the smell of pine. He usually took meals at his ranch, and his appearance caused another stir. He hung his coat, hat, settled into an empty chair across from her. "Evening," he said to the table at large, though his eyes found hers briefly. "Edna said there was shepherd's pie tonight. Couldn't resist." Edna herself emerged from the kitchen, set a plate before him. "About time you showed up for a meal. Starting to think you didn't like my cooking." "You know better than that." The conversation slowly returned to normal topics, but Liza felt the undercurrent. Beau's presence here, clearly connected to hers, would be discussed later in corners and doorways. She kept her eyes on her plate, finished quickly. "I should check on the Hendersons' mare," she said, rising. "Promised I'd change her poultice tonight." "It's already dark," Edna protested, "and starting to snow again." "I gave my word." Beau stood too. "I'll walk with you. Need to check on my horse at the livery anyway." They left together. Another detail for the town to chew over. Outside. Snow fell light but steady, muffling their footsteps. They walked without speaking at first, comfortable in the quiet. "You didn't need to do that," Liza said finally. "Come to dinner. I mean, maybe I wanted shepherd's pie." She almost smiled. "People will talk." "People always talk. Let them." He paused at the corner where their paths would diverge. "Can I ask you something?" She tensed but nodded. "What you said to Hartley, about people seeing what they expect. You weren't just talking about horses, were you? The question hung between them, delicate as snowflakes. She could deflect, make excuses, walk away. Instead, she found herself answering, "No, I wasn't." He waited, not pushing. The snow gathered on his shoulders, in his dark hair, patient as always. "My husband," she said, the words strange after so long unspoken. He had expectations about what a wife should be, how she should act. When I didn't match those expectations, she touched her throat, where the scarf hid the scar. He tried to make me fit them anyway. Beau's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his stance, protective without crowding. "Is he looking for you?" "No." The single word carried finality. "He's not looking for anyone anymore." Understanding passed between them. Not the details, those remained unspoken, but the shape of it, the weight. Beau nodded once, accepting what she'd given without demanding more. "The Henderson place is this way," he said simply, and they continued walking. The mare was stabled in a small barn behind the Henderson house. She greeted Liza with a soft nicker, already associating her with relief from pain. The abscess on her leg was draining well, healing clean. Beau held the lantern while she worked, changing the poultice with practiced movements. The mare stood quiet, trusting. "You're good at this," he observed. "Not just the doctoring, the way you are with them." "Animals are honest. They don't pretend or lie or expect you to be something you're not. If you're kind to them, they remember. If you hurt them—" She tied off the bandage. "They remember that too." "And people?" "People are complicated." She gathered her supplies. "They can be kind and cruel in the same breath, love you and destroy you with the same hands." The words were bitter, but Beau heard the pain beneath them. He wanted to say something comforting, but what comfort could he offer? He knew about complicated people, about love that came with conditions and consequences. They left the barn, started back toward town. The snow fell heavier now, and Liza stumbled on uneven ground, her bad leg made worse by cold and the day's exertions. Beau caught her elbow, steadied her. "Thank you," she murmured, embarrassed by the weakness. "We all stumble sometimes." They reached the boarding house. Light spilled from windows, warm and inviting. She paused at the door, turned to face him. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" The question surprised them both. "Everyone else looks at me and sees the scar, sees damage, sees stories they've made up. But you—" "I see someone who survived," he said quietly. "Someone who got away from something that tried to break her. That's not something to fear, that's something to respect." Tears threatened, and she blinked them back. "I'm not who you think I am. I'm not good or brave or—" "I think you're someone who doctors horses and keeps her word and walks through snow to tend an animal in pain. That's all I need to know right now." The simplicity of it undid her. No questions about the past, no demands for explanation, just acceptance of who she was in this moment, in this place. "I should go in," she managed. "Liza," her name on his lips, stopped her. "Whatever you're not telling me, whatever you think makes you unworthy of kindness, it doesn't matter. Not to me. You're here now, doing good work. That's enough." She couldn't speak past the tightness in her throat, so she just nodded and escaped inside. Up in her room, she sat on the bed and let the tears come. Silent, exhausted tears for everything lost and broken and scarred. But underneath the grief, something else stirred. Hope. Maybe. Or just the possibility of it. The idea that she could be seen as more than her damage, known as more than her worst moment. Through her window, she watched Beau disappear into the snow. He'd asked for nothing, offered everything. Patience and protection and the radical notion that she was enough as she was. Her husband had looked at her and seen something to be fixed, controlled, possessed, had tried to reshape her with words and fists and finally fire. She'd survived, but come away convinced that was all she was. A survivor, marked and ruined. But Bo looked at her and saw someone who doctored horses, someone who kept her word, someone worth walking with through the snow. It wasn't love too early, too fragile for that word, but it was something, a foundation, maybe a place to build from. She pulled out her journal, wrote carefully. Asterisk, I told him. Not everything, but enough. He didn't run, didn't look at me different, just accepted it like he accepts everything, quiet and steady and sure. Asterisk, I don't know what to do with that, with him, with the way he makes me feel like maybe I could be whole again, not just mended. Asterisk, tomorrow I'll go back to the Hartley Ranch, check on the stallion. The day after, there's a mare at the Olson farm needs looking at. Building something here, one horse at a time, one day at a time. Asterisk, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how healing happens, not all at once like I've been waiting for, but slowly, carefully, with someone patient enough to hold steady while you figure out how to reach for what you want. Asterisk, I want to stay. God help me, I want to try. She closed the journal, prepared for bed, outside. The snow continued to fall, covering the town in fresh white. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, but tonight she'd told a piece of her truth and hadn't been found wanting. It was a start. After everything, it was a place to begin. The rumors started small, like smoke from a distant fire. Whispers at the general store about the woman with the scar who claimed she could heal horses better than Doc Pritchard. Speculation at the saloon about where she'd come from, what she was hiding. By the third week of her residence in Frontiers Hollow, the whispers had grown to open talk. Heard she was run out of Denver, Carl said loudly one evening at Edna's, voice carrying across the dining room. Something about a dead husband and questions the law was asking. Liza kept her hand steady on her coffee cup. Though every muscle tensed, she'd known this would come eventually. Small towns fed on gossip like fires fed on wood. That's enough, Carl, Edna warned from behind the bar. Just saying what everyone's thinking. Woman shows up alone. Middle of winter. With that scar and secrets she won't tell makes people wonder. Makes fools flap their gums, Henry Fitzgerald muttered. But Carl wasn't done. Tom Hartley's wife told my Sarah that she saw our mysterious Miss Quinn talking to herself out at their ranch, whispering to horses like they was people. That's not natural. What's not natural is a grown man spreading women's gossip. Bo's voice cut through the room. He stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes, expression dark. You got something to say about Miss Quinn. You say it to her face. Carl's bravado faltered. Just concern for the town, is all. We don't know nothing about her. You know she's helped every animal brought to her. Know she pays her rent on time and causes no trouble. What else matters? Maybe what happened to her husband matters, Carl pressed, though his voice had lost its edge. Maybe why she'd left wherever she came from. The room went silent. Liza set down her cup, stood slowly. Every eye tracked her movement. My husband is dead, she said quietly, clearly. He died in a fire 2 years ago. The same fire that gave me this scar and this limp. I left because staying meant remembering every day. Because sometimes starting over is the only choice left. She looked directly at Carl. I talk to horses because they listen without judging. Because they don't spread gossip or make up stories about people they don't know. If that makes me strange, so be it. She walked out, back straight despite the burning in her leg. Behind her, the silence stretched until Edna's voice cracked like a whip. Anyone else want to run their mouth about my guests? No, then eat your dinner and mind your own business. Bo found her an hour later, sitting on a bench behind the boarding house. Snow fell around them, soft as whispers. You didn't have to do that, she said without looking at him. To stand up for you, yeah, I did. It'll make things worse. Now they'll talk about you, too. He sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. Let them. I've been here 5 years. They know who I am. And who are you? Bo Ramsey. He considered the question. Someone who knows what it's like to need a second chance. Someone who got one when I probably didn't deserve it. She turned to study his profile in the lamplight. Strong jaw, honest eyes, hands that could be gentle or hard as needed. Will you tell me? If you want to hear it. She nodded, and he began. I wasn't always a rancher. Grew up in Missouri, son of a judge. Was supposed to follow in his footsteps. Be respectable instead. I fell in with the wrong people. Got involved in things I shouldn't have. One night, it went bad. A man died. Not by my hand, but I was there. Could have stopped it, didn't. His voice stayed level, but she heard the old pain beneath. I ran, changed my name, kept moving west, worked cattle drives, learned ranching, eventually ended up here. Old Sam McKenna gave me work, didn't ask questions. When he died, he left me a piece of land, said every man deserved a chance to build something good. Do they know the town? Some suspect, but I've been straight since I got here. Worked hard, helped neighbors, kept my word. That counts for something. They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow fall. Two people with pasts that wouldn't stay buried, trying to build futures on uncertain ground. Thank you, she said finally, for telling me, for everything. You going to be all right after tonight? She thought about it. The talk was going to start eventually. At least now it's in the open. They'll either accept me or they won't. For what it's worth, the ones who matter will accept you. Edna, Henry, the Hendersons, me. The simple inclusion warmed her more than any fire. Why does it feel like you're always rescuing me? I'm not rescuing you. You don't need rescuing. You just need people to see what's already there. He stood, offered his hand. Come on, it's getting cold. She took his hand, let him pull her up. For a moment they stood close, his hand still holding hers. She could see his breath in the cold air, feel the warmth radiating from him. Liza, he said softly. Whatever happened before, whoever you were then, it doesn't change who you are now. How can you be sure? Because I've watched you, seen how you are with animals, with people who give you a chance. That's not something you can fake. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust in this simple version of herself, the woman who doctored horses and paid her rent and sat in the snow with a good man. But the past clung like smoke, refusing to dissipate. Carl wasn't entirely wrong. She admitted, there were questions after the fire, about how it started, why I survived when my husband didn't. I was cleared, but suspicion lingered. That's why I left. Bo squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. Were you guilty of what they suspected? No. The word came firm. Certain. I was guilty of other things, staying too long, accepting treatment I shouldn't have, not being the wife he wanted. But I didn't start that fire. Then that's all that matters. They walked back toward the boarding house. At the door, she paused. What if Carl keeps talking? What if others start believing the worst? Then I'll keep standing up for you. So will Edna, and others. You're not alone here. Liza, not anymore. The words followed her up to her room, stayed with her as she prepared for bed. Not alone. Such a simple concept, but one she'd forgotten was possible. She thought of her husband, how isolated she'd become in their marriage, how he'd slowly cut her off from friends, family, anyone who might have helped. By the time she'd realized the danger, she'd been completely alone with it. But here, in this small mountain town, people were choosing to stand with her. Bo, who knew about second chances. Edna, fierce in her protection. Even old Henry, muttering at Carl's gossip. A knock interrupted her thoughts. It's Edna. She opened the door to find the older woman holding a steaming mug. Thought you could use this. My grandmother's recipe whiskey, honey and herbs. Good for cold nights and hard days. Liza accepted the mug gratefully. Thank you, and thank you for earlier. Bah, Edna waved dismissively. Carl's a fool who drinks too much and thinks too little. Most folks know that. But some will believe him. Some might. Edna's expression grew serious. Question is, what are you going to do about it, run again? Or stay and prove them wrong? I want to stay, but if it becomes too difficult... Life's always difficult. That's not reason enough to run. You've got work here, people who respect you. And unless I'm blind, you've got a good man interested in more than your horse doctoring skills. Heat touched Liza's cheeks. Beau's just being kind. That man doesn't do anything, just anything. He's deliberate in everything. If he's standing by you, it's because he sees something worth standing by. Edna headed for the door, turned back. Don't let Carl and his gossip drive you off. This town needs someone who can doctor animals proper. And maybe Beau needs someone who understands what it's like to carry weight from the past. After she left, Liza sat by the window, sipping the warming drink. Below, the town slept under fresh snow, somewhere out there. Carl was probably spinning his tales, but somewhere else. Beau was in his ranch house, having offered his own truth in exchange for hers. She thought of Hartley's stallion, eating well now, the Henderson's mare, healing clean, all the animals she'd helped in her weeks here. Work that mattered. That made a difference. Tomorrow, there would be whispers, looks, questions, but there would also be animals needing help, and people willing to see past gossip to the truth of what she could do. For tonight, that was enough. Tomorrow, she'd face whatever came, but she'd face it here, in this place that was slowly becoming home, with people who were slowly becoming hers. Not alone anymore. The thought warmed her more than Edna's whiskey ever could. The fire had started in the kitchen. They said, spread through the old wooden house like water through paper. By the time the neighbors saw smoke, half the structure was already burning. They found Charles Quinn in the parlor, overcome by smoke. His wife they found later, collapsed by the back door, still breathing but badly burned. That was the story everyone knew. The truth, the one Liza had never told anyone, was different. She sat across from Beau in his ranch house kitchen, coffee cooling between her hands. Outside, a late January storm battered the windows. She'd ridden out to check on a sick colt, but the weather had turned violent, trapping her here. Now, with the wind howling and nowhere to run, the words she'd held back for 2 years finally found their way out. He'd been drinking, she began, voice barely above a whisper. More than usual? I'd overcooked the roast, or maybe I'd looked at him wrong, or maybe he just needed a reason. He always found one. Beau sat still as stone, letting her speak at her own pace. I tried to get to the stove, to salvage dinner before he got angrier, but he grabbed my arm, spun me around. His hand went to my throat. Her fingers touched her scar unconsciously. He had this ring, heavy gold with sharp edges. When he grabbed me, it cut deep. The wind screamed outside, matching the memory of her own screams that night. I pushed him, not hard, just trying to get away. But he was drunk, unsteady. He fell backward, hit the stove, the oil lamp on top. It shattered. The flame caught his shirt, the cooking grease, the curtains. Everything happened so fast. She looked up, met Beau's eyes. I tried to put it out, threw water, beat at the flames with a towel, but he was screaming, flailing, making it worse. The smoke got thick so quickly, I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. The last thing I remember is crawling toward the door. The neighbors found you outside, Beau said quietly. That's what saved you. What condemned me, more like. Why was I by the back door while my husband died in the parlor? Why did I survive when he didn't? The sheriff asked those questions over and over. But they cleared you. Officially, but small towns have long memories and creative imaginations. Some said I set the fire deliberately. Others thought I just let him burn when I could have saved him. She laughed bitterly. Maybe they were right about that part. When I came to and heard he was dead, my first feeling was relief. What kind of wife feels relief? The kind whose husband hurt her. Beau's voice held controlled anger, but not at her. The kind who survived years of fear. I should have left him earlier, before it got so bad. Before... She stopped, unable to continue. Beau stood, moved around the table. He knelt beside her chair, careful not to crowd her. Before what? I was pregnant once. The words fell like stones into still water. Early in our marriage, before the worst of it, when I told Charles, he was furious. Said we couldn't afford a child, that I'd done it on purpose to trap him. He made sure I lost it. After that, something in me broke. I stopped fighting back, stopped hoping things would change. Tears fell freely now. Beau handed her his handkerchief, stayed close without touching. Until that night, she continued. When he grabbed my throat, when I felt that ring cutting deep, something woke up, the part of me that wanted to live. So I pushed him, and he fell, and everything burned. It was self-defense. Was it, or did I see a chance and take it when the house was burning, when I could have gone back for him? I chose the door instead. I chose to live. You chose to survive. There's no shame in that. She looked at him through tears. How can you be sure you didn't know me then? Didn't know the woman who stayed with a man who hurt her, who lost a child and kept silent, who watched her husband burn and crawled away? I know the woman who came to Frontier's Hollow, who helps animals in pain and keeps her promises and faces down gossip with dignity. That's the woman I see. What if they're the same person? What if I'm still her, just hiding it better? Beau took her hands gently, careful of old fears. Then you're someone who survived something terrible and chose to use that survival to help others. Your husband made his choices. You don't have to carry the weight of them forever. The storm rattled the windows, reminding them both of the world outside this kitchen, this moment of truth. But for now, they were suspended in this bubble of honesty and acceptance. I dream about it sometimes, she admitted. The smoke, the screams. But worse are the dreams where he lived, where I'm still trapped in that house, that life. You're not trapped anymore. You're here, building something new. With you. The question slipped out before she could stop it. Beau's hands tightened slightly on hers. If you'll have me, I don't know how to be with someone who's been hurt like you have, but I want to learn. Want to be the kind of man who makes you feel safe, not scared. You already do. The admission terrified her, but it was true. When I'm with you, I remember who I was before, or maybe who I could have been. Be her now. Nothing's stopping you. She freed one hand, touched his face, rough with stubble, warm, real. I don't know how. It's been so long since I trusted anyone, even myself. Then we'll go slow. Learn as we go. He turned his head, pressed a kiss to her palm. I've got time. All the time you need. The gesture undid her. She slid from the chair to her knees beside him. Let him gather her close. His arms came around her carefully, like she was something precious and fragile. She pressed her face to his shoulder and let years of held-back sobs shake through her. He held her through it, steady as mountain stone, murmured nonsense words of comfort, stroked her hair, let her grief spend itself against his strength. When the storm inside finally calmed to match the quieting storm outside, she pulled back to look at him. I've never told anyone all of it, not the sheriff, not even my own family. Thank you for trusting me with it. I want to stay, she said, here, in Frontier's Hollow, with you, but I'm scared. What if the past follows me? What if someone comes asking questions? Then we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore. Liza, whatever comes, you've got me, Edna, others who've come to respect you. That's what community means. She kissed him then, soft and tentative. He let her lead, careful not to push for more than she offered. When she pulled back, his eyes were dark with want but also understanding. I should get you back to town, he said. Storm's passing. Not yet. She stood, moved to the window. The world outside was white and clean, transformed by snow. Let me just be here a little longer. Be the woman you see when you look at me. He came to stand behind her, not touching but close enough she could feel his warmth. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. They watched the last of the storm clouds blow past, revealing stars sharp as glass. The fire in the stove crackled peacefully, so different from the destroying flames of memory. This was hearth fire, home fire, the kind that warmed instead of consumed. He said no one would believe me, she said quietly. The night he died, when he had me by the throat. Said no one would take my word over his, that I was nothing without him. He was wrong. Yes, she turned to face him. He was wrong about everything. I survived. I got away. I found this place, these people. Found you. That matters more than how it happened? Bo smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. There she is, the woman who doctors horses and stands up to gossip and rides through storms. That's who you've always been, even when you couldn't see it. She thought of all the small animals she'd helped heal since arriving, each one a tiny redemption, proof that her hands could help instead of harm. Thought of Edna's fierce protection, Henry's quiet support, of this man who'd opened his home and heart without demanding explanations she wasn't ready to give. Charles is dead, she said, testing the words. He can't hurt me anymore, can't hurt anyone. No, he can't. And I'm alive, still here, still breathing, still healing. She nodded, felt something tight in her chest finally loosen. Not gone entirely, such wounds never fully disappeared, but looser, allowing room for breath, for hope, for whatever came next. Take me back to town, she said. But slowly. I want to remember this. The night I told the truth and wasn't found wanting. They dressed for the cold, saddled horses in companionable silence, as they rode through the transformed landscape. Liza felt lighter than she had in years. The past was still there, would always be there, but it no longer owned her future. She'd told her worst secret to the best man she knew, and he hadn't turned away. If that wasn't a miracle worth believing in, she didn't know what was. The lights of Frontier's Hollow appeared ahead, welcoming them home. Home. The word settled in her chest next to hope, next to healing, next to whatever this feeling was that bloomed when Bo smiled at her. Maybe she'd never be the woman she might have been without Charles, without the fire, without the long road that brought her here. But she could be this woman, scarred but not broken, careful but learning to trust, building something good from the ashes of something terrible. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. The collapse came without warning on a clear February morning. Bo was repairing fence posts in the north pasture when the pain hit sharp as a knife between his ribs, stealing his breath. He gripped the post, tried to steady himself, but the world tilted sideways and he went down hard in the snow. Time blurred. He remembered trying to stand, falling again, the sun moving across the sky in jerks and starts, his horse whinnying, nudging him with worried persistence. By the time he managed to drag himself onto the saddle, shadows were stretching long across the snow. The ride back to the ranch house was agony. Each movement sent fresh fire through his chest and back. Old wounds, he realized dimly. The ones from the fire 3 years ago, when he'd pulled the Garrett children from their burning barn. Doc Pritchard had warned him about infection settling deep, possibly flaring up later. He'd ignored it, too stubborn to admit weakness. He barely made it to the porch before sliding from the saddle, crawled to the door, managed to get inside before the shaking took him. Fever, chills, the familiar burn of infection spreading. He'd seen it kill men stronger than him. The knock came hours later, or maybe minutes. Time had gone strange with fever. "Bo, you missed our meeting about the spring drive." Tom Hartley's voice muffled through the door. "Bo!" He tried to answer, but only managed a groan. The door opened. He never locked it. Foolish habit. And Tom's curse cut through the fever fog.
Jesus Christ! Hold on, I'll get help.
No, Bo managed.
Get Liza.
You need Doc Pritchard.
Liza, please.
Tom hesitated, then nodded. Bo heard hooves pounding away and let the darkness take him. He surfaced to gentle hands and a familiar voice. Liza knelt beside him, face tight with concern. Behind her, Tom hovered uncertainly. How long? She asked, fingers already finding the source of heat and swelling along his ribs.
Don't know. This morning. Maybe longer.
She pulled his shirt up, sucked in a breath at what she found.
Tom, I need hot water, clean cloths, and my medical bag from my room at Edna's. Hurry.
But Doc Pritchard
won't help.
Her voice cut sharp.
This is old infection, deep-seated. I've seen it before. If we wait for Pritchard to decide it's worth his time. Bo dies, now go.
Tom went. Liza turned back to Bo, smoothing hair from his burning forehead.
Why didn't you tell someone you were hurt? When did this start? Few days ago. Thought it was just muscle strain.
Stubborn fool. But her hands were infinitely gentle as she examined the swollen area.
This is from an old wound.
Fire 3 years back saved some kids.
Of course you did.
Tears gathered in her eyes, but her voice stayed steady.
I'm going to have to cut this open. Drain the infection. It's going to hurt. I trust you.
She cupped his face, held his gaze.
I won't let you die. You hear me, you don't get to leave now. Not after everything.
Tom returned with supplies and Edna in tow. The older woman took one look and started heating water without questions. They moved Bo to the kitchen table. Better light and a surface Liza could work on.
Tom, hold his shoulders. Edna, I need those cloths ready.
Liza pulled out her father's surgical tools, hands steady despite her fear.
Bo, I'm sorry for this.
She cut. He tried not to scream, managed to keep it to groans through clenched teeth. The infection poured out, foul and dangerous. She worked with focused intensity, cleaning, draining, searching for pockets of poison.
There,
she breathed finally.
Got it all, I think.
She packed the wound with herbs from her bag, remedies her father had taught her, bandaged him with practiced efficiency. Only when it was done did her hands start to shake.
He needs watching tonight,
she told Edna.
The fever should break, but if it doesn't...
You'll stay, Edna said firmly.
Tom, ride back and tell folks what's happening. Say I'm staying too, for propriety's sake.
Liza wanted to protest, but one look at Bo stopped her. His face was gray, breathing shallow. She'd done what she could, but infection was unpredictable. He needed someone with him. They moved him to his bed, made him as comfortable as possible. Edna took the chair by the door, pulled out her knitting. I'll be right here if you need me. Liza sat on the bed's edge, took Bo's hand. His eyes fluttered open, focused on her with effort. Still here, he whispered. Where else would I be? It's not proper. People will talk.
Let them. You stayed with me when I needed it. Now it's my turn.
He squeezed her hand weakly. If something happens, nothing's going to happen. You're too stubborn to die on me.
Just, if it does, want you to know, these past months since you came, been the best of my life. Bo, let me say it, please.
His thumb stroked across her knuckles.
You made me remember why living matters. Not just surviving, but really living. Wanting things again. Hoping.
Tears ran freely down her cheeks.
You gave me the same, a place to belong, someone to trust.
You can't leave now, not when we're just starting.
Not leaving, just resting.
His eyes drifted closed. You'll be here. I'll be here. She stayed through the night, monitoring his fever, changing compresses, dripping water between his lips. Somewhere near dawn, the fever spiked. He thrashed, delirious, calling for people she didn't know. She held him through it, spoke nonsense comfort, prayed to whatever might be listening. Then, as sudden as it came, the fever broke. Sweat poured off him, soaking the sheets. His breathing eased, deepened. Real sleep, not the restless unconsciousness of fever. "There we go," she whispered, exhausted. "There's my stubborn cowboy." Edna appeared with coffee and knowing eyes. "He'll make it." "I think so. The wound's clean. Fever's broken. Just needs rest now." "As do you. Go lie down in the spare room for a few hours. I'll watch him." Too tired to argue, Liza stumbled to the small room across the hall, collapsed fully dressed on the narrow bed, asleep before her head hit the pillow. She woke to afternoon light and the smell of soup, found Beau propped up in bed, pale but alert, arguing with Edna about trying to get up. "You'll stay in that bed for a week if I have to tie you down." Edna was saying, "I've got stock to tend." "Tom's handling it," Liza said from the doorway. Both turned to her, and the relief in Beau's eyes made her throat tight. "How do you feel?" "Like I got kicked by a mule, but alive, thanks to you. Thanks to Tom for getting me. Thanks to Edna for helping. Thanks to you for being too ornery to die." Edna huffed. "I'll leave you two alone, but door stays open, and I'll be in the kitchen if needed." After she left, Liza sat carefully on the bed's edge, checked his bandages, satisfied to find them clean. "You scared me." "Scared myself. When the pain hit, all I could think was I hadn't told you. Hadn't said—" "Said what?" He caught her hand, pulled it to his chest where she could feel his heartbeat, steady and sure. "That I love you. Have for weeks now. Maybe from the start. Just didn't know how to say it right." The words hung between them, fragile as spun glass. She could pull back, deflect, protect herself. Instead, she leaned down, kissed him soft and careful. "I love you too, terrified of it, but there it is. Nothing to be terrified of, not with us." She thought of the night before, holding him through fever and pain, of how right it felt, being the one to save him this time, of Edna's knowing looks and Tom's quick acceptance of her authority. "The whole town will know by now," she said, "that I stayed the night, that you asked for me instead of Pritchard." "Good. Let them know. Let them see that we belong to each other." Belong to each other. She tested the words, found them sweet instead of threatening. "I like that. When I'm healed up proper, I want to court you official. Do it right. Sunday dinners, church socials, whatever it takes to show this town you're my girl." "I think after last night they already know." "Then to show you, every day, as long as you'll let me." She kissed him again, careful of his injuries, but sure of her heart. Outside, she could hear Edna humming in the kitchen, the normal sounds of life continuing. But inside this room, something new had been born. Trust deepened to love, fear transformed to hope. "Rest now," she told him. "I'll be here when you wake." "Promise." "Promise, for tonight, tomorrow, as long as you want me." He smiled, eyes already drooping with healing sleep. Forever, then. That long enough? She thought of all the reasons to say no, all the wounds and scars and broken places, found them outweighed by this, his hand in hers, his heart beating steady under her palm, his stubborn refusal to let infection or gossip or her own fears drive them apart. "Forever sounds about right," she whispered, and meant it down to her bones. The winter morning started peaceful enough. Beau was in the barn, still moving careful from his recent illness, but determined to work. Liza had come by to check his bandages and stayed for coffee, their new routine these past weeks. They were discussing spring planting when they heard the horses, too many, riding too fast. Through the barn door, they watched 6 riders thunder into the yard, townmen, led by Carl and Doc Pritchard. Their faces were hard, purposeful in a way that made Liza's stomach drop. Stay here, Bo said quietly. But she followed him out anyway. Ramsey, Pritchard called without dismounting. We need to talk about your woman there. Her name is Miss Quinn, Bo said evenly. And anything you need to say, you can say civil-like. Carl spat tobacco juice near Bo's boots. Civil went out the window when she started practicing medicine without proper training. Could have killed you with her butchering. She saved my life. Says you. Way I heard it. She cut you open in your own kitchen like you were livestock. Pritchard's voice carried the authority of his years, his position. That's not medicine. That's dangerous foolishness that needs stopping before someone dies. Someone would have died. Liza stepped forward, chin high despite her hammering heart. Bo would have died if I'd waited for you to decide he was worth helping. You don't know that. I've been doctoring in this town for 30 years. And you missed a metal fragment in Hartley's stallion? Missed obvious infection in the Henderson mare? How many animals have died because you only see what you expect to see? Pritchard's face darkened. Animals are one thing, but treating people, that's beyond your place. Woman. My place. The words came sharp. My place is using the skills my father taught me to help whoever needs it, human or animal. Your father? Carl laughed ugly. You mean the man who taught you to whisper to horses like they were people to cut into a man without proper schooling? He was a veterinarian trained at the University of Pennsylvania, Liza said quietly. He studied under Dr. Rush himself before turning to animal medicine. He taught me everything, anatomy, infection, surgical techniques. Just because I'm a woman doesn't make that knowledge less real. The men exchanged glances. This was new information, complicating their simple narrative. Doesn't matter, Pritchard finally said. You're not licensed, not recognized. What you did was illegal, and we're here to make sure it doesn't happen again. Or what? Bo's voice had gone dangerously quiet. You'll run her out of town like a mob. If necessary. Carl's hand moved to his rifle, still in its scabbard but the threat clear. We protect our own here. Can't have some woman thinking she can... The gunshot cut him off, not aimed at anyone, just fired into the air. Everyone turned to see Tom Hartley riding up, rifle still smoking. That's enough excitement for one morning, Tom said calmly, though his eyes were hard. Carl, Doc, boys, what exactly are you doing on Bo's property? Tom, this doesn't concern you, Pritchard started. Like hell it doesn't. Miss Quinn saved my prize stallion, saved Bo's life from what I saw. Now you're here threatening her. Tom dismounted, moved to stand beside Bo. Seems to me she's done more good in 3 months than harm. She's practicing medicine without license, Pritchard insisted. It's illegal. So's forming a mob to threaten a woman. Sheriff Williams had arrived, badge glinting in the morning sun. Behind him, more riders. Edna on her old mare. Henry Fitzgerald. The Hendersons. Others who'd come to see what the commotion was about. We're not a mob, Carl protested. Just concerned citizens. 6 armed men riding on a ranch to threaten someone. Sure sounds like a mob to me. The sheriff positioned himself between the groups. Now, someone want to explain what's really going on here? Everyone started talking at once. Through it all, Liza stood frozen, transported back to another time, another group of men with hard faces and harder questions. The sheriff after the fire, the neighbors with their suspicions, the whispers that followed her everywhere until she'd fled. Bo's hand found hers, squeezed gentle. The touch anchored her, reminded her this was different. She wasn't alone this time. Enough, Sheriff Williams raised his hand. Miss Quinn, I need to ask, did you perform surgery on Mr. Ramsey? I did. Her voice came steadier than expected. He had deep infection from an old wound. I cleaned and drained it. Are you a licensed doctor? No, but I was trained by my father in veterinary medicine, including surgical techniques. The principles are the same. The hell they are, Pritchard burst out.
Animals and people aren't the same. The infection would have killed him, Liza interrupted. You can examine the wound yourself if you doubt it. See how deep it went, how close to vital organs. Another day, maybe 2, and no one could have saved him. She's right. Everyone turned. A stranger sat a black horse at the edge of the gathering older man, well-dressed, carrying a medical bag. Dr. Marcus Webb. He introduced himself. From Denver, heard there was some medical excitement out this way, thought I'd investigate. He dismounted, approached Sheriff Williams. Mind if I examine the patient, give a professional opinion? The sheriff looked relieved. Please do. They moved inside, crowding Beau's kitchen. Doctor. Webb examined Beau thoroughly, asking questions about the injury, the treatment. His hands were sure, experienced. When he finally straightened, his expression was thoughtful. Miss Quinn, where did you learn to pack a wound like that? My father. He learned it treating cavalry horses during the war. The herbal poultice. Old remedy, draws infection while preventing new contamination. Dr. Webb nodded slowly. Sheriff, in my professional opinion, Miss Quinn's treatment was textbook perfect, better than textbook innovative. That packing technique is something I've only seen in the best Eastern hospitals. He turned to Pritchard. You're the local doctor. Pritchard nodded stiffly. Then you're lucky to have someone with Miss Quinn's skills to assist. Field medicine knowledge like hers could save lives. She's not licensed, Pritchard said weakly. Neither were half the surgeons in the war. Didn't make them less capable. Doctor. Webb looked at Liza with interest. Have you considered formal training? There are schools now, even some accepting women. No, I just help where I can. Pity. Natural talent like yours is rare. He turned to the sheriff. I see no crime here. Just a woman using considerable skill to save a man's life. If that's illegal, then the law needs changing. The tension in the room shifted. Carl muttered something under his breath, but even he seemed deflated. Sheriff Williams cleared his throat. Seems to me this was all a misunderstanding. Miss Quinn helped in an emergency. No harm done. Fact, good was done. I suggest we all get back to our business. The crowd began dispersing, though Pritchard lingered. This isn't over, he told Liza quietly. You may have won today, but... Actually, it is over. Edna's voice cut sharp. Unless you want the whole town knowing about Mrs. Carson's growth you missed last year, the one that killed her because you said it was nothing, or the Baxter boy's broken arm you set wrong, left him partial crippled. Pritchard went white. You can't prove. Can't I? People talk to me. Doctor, they tell me things over drinks and dinner. How many have you failed while protecting your pride? Edna stepped closer. Leave Miss Quinn alone, or every mistake you've made in 30 years becomes public knowledge. He left without another word. Carl and the others followed, subdued. Soon only friends remained. Tom, Edna, the sheriff, Doctor, Webb. Thank you, Liza managed. All of you. Don't thank us, Tom said. You've earned your place here. About time everyone knew it. Dr. Webb approached her again. I meant what I said about training. There's a school in Philadelphia. Very progressive. They'd be lucky to have someone with your experience. I'll think about it. After he left his card and departed, after the others said their goodbyes, after the yard finally emptied, Liza found herself shaking. Beau pulled her close, held her while reaction set in. It's over, he murmured. They can't hurt you now. They wanted to drive me out, just like before. But they didn't. You stood your ground, told your truth, and people stood with you. She pulled back to see his face. Dr. Webb, what he said about school. You should think about it. You're too talented to hide in a small town forever. This is my home now. You're here. I'll still be here if you go learn. Wait for you to come back, if that's what you want. He touched her face gently. Don't let fear decide your future. Liza? Not anymore. She thought about it. Proper training, real credentials, the ability to help without having to justify herself to men like Pritchard. It terrified and thrilled in equal measure. "We'll see," she said finally. "Right now, I just want to be here. Be us." "Then that's what we'll be." He kissed her, soft and sure. "Just know that whatever you decide, I'm with you. School, practice, whatever dreams you want to chase. I'm with you." Standing in his kitchen where she'd saved his life, where she'd faced down a mob and won, Liza felt something fundamental shift. The past would always be part of her, but it no longer defined her limits. She had skills, talent, people who believed in her. She had choices now, real ones. For someone who'd spent years running from the past, the future suddenly looked full of possibility. Spring had come to Frontier's Hollow, melting snow into mud, coaxing green from sleeping earth. Liza sat by the window in Beau's ranch house, her sewing forgotten in her lap. The afternoon sun caught on the simple gold band he'd placed on her finger 3 days ago, turning it to fire. The wedding had been small. Just Edna, Tom, Henry, the Hendersons, Sheriff Williams. They'd stood in the town's little church while Reverend Mills spoke words about commitment and courage. Beau's hands had been steady on hers, his voice sure as he made promises she finally believed could be kept. "Regrets?" Beau asked from the doorway, studying her quiet face. "No, just thinking how far we've come, both of us." He crossed to her, settled his hands on her shoulders. Through the window, they could see his ranch, their ranch now, spreading toward the mountains. Horses grazed in the near pasture, including several she was treating. Word had spread beyond Frontier's Hollow. People brought animals from neighboring towns now, seeking the woman who could heal what others couldn't. "I got a letter today," she said, pulling an envelope from her pocket. "From that school doctor. Webb mentioned." Beau's hands stilled but didn't tighten. "What did they say?" "They'll accept me for the accelerated program. My experience counts as preliminary training. 2 years and I could be certified. Legal." "That's wonderful." His voice held genuine pride, though she heard the layer beneath. "When would you start?" "September. If I go." "If..." She turned to face him. "My life is here now. Our life. The practice I've built. The home we're making. I'm not sure I want to leave it, even temporarily." "But you're thinking about it." "I'm thinking about what I could do with real training. How many more I could help, and..." She hesitated, then pushed forward. "I'm thinking about doing it right this time, not hiding or running or accepting less than I deserve." Beau knelt before her, took her hands. "Then you should go. 2 years is a long time. I waited 5 years to find you. 2 more is nothing if it means you get to become everything you're capable of being. You'd wait. I'd visit. Philadelphia isn't the moon. And when you came back, you'd be Dr. Quinn, with papers to prove what I already know, that you're gifted." She touched his face. This good man who'd seen her true from the start. "What did I do to deserve you?" "Survived, kept going, stayed kind despite everything." He turned his head, kissed her palm, made me believe in second chances. A knock interrupted them. Through the window, they saw a wagon approaching, a man driving while a woman held a bundled form. "The baby," Liza breathed. The Olson's infant, born too early, struggling to breathe. She'd been treating him with warm compresses and herbs, but... They rushed out. "Mrs." Olson's face was streaked with tears. "He's worse. Please, the doctor won't come. Says it's too late. But I can't just let him..." "Bring him inside." Liza was already moving, her mind shifting into the focused calm of crisis. "Beau, I need hot water, clean cloths. Mrs. Olson. When did he last nurse?" They worked through the afternoon. The baby was so small, breathing so labored. Liza did everything she knew, cleared his airways,
used steam to ease congestion, applied poultices to help his lungs expand. Bo assisted without question, anticipating her needs. Hours passed. The sun sank toward the mountains, and then, between one breath and the next, the baby's breathing eased. Color returned to blue-tinged skin. He opened his eyes, gave a thin but determined cry. "Oh, Mrs." Olson gathered him close, tears now of joy. "Oh, thank God! Thank you!" After they left with careful instructions and herbs to continue treatment, Liza slumped in a kitchen chair. Bo poured coffee, sat beside her. "You saved him," he said simply. "For now, he'll need careful watching, but I think he'll make it." "How did you know what to do?" She thought about it. "Some from my father, some from watching, learning, but some—" She looked at her hands, still trembling from the intensity. "Some I just knew. Felt like the knowledge was already there, waiting. That's what Dr. Webb saw, what the school sees, natural gift combined with training. If that baby had died because I didn't know enough, because I was too proud or scared to get proper training, then you'll go." It wasn't a question. "I'll go." She looked at him, this man who'd become her anchor and wings both. "But I'll come back. This is home. Your home." He stood, pulled her up and into his arms. "I know, and I'll be here, building our life, waiting for my wife to come back and make it complete." They stood in their kitchen, holding each other while night fell soft outside. In town, people would be talking about the baby's recovery, about the woman with scarred hands who'd worked another miracle. Some would doubt, some would judge, but more would remember when she'd helped them, their animals, their families. "I want to do something before I go," Liza said against his chest. "Visit Charles's grave, not to mourn, but to close that chapter properly, to tell him I survived, that I made something good from the ashes." "I'll go with you." "I know you will." She pulled back to see his face. "That's the difference. I'm not alone anymore. Whatever I face, past, future, anything, I have you, have this place, have people who see me true." "Always," he promised, and sealed it with a kiss. Later, as they prepared for bed in the room they now shared, Liza noticed her old journal on the dresser. She opened it, read entries from those first terrified days in Frontier's Hollow. The woman who'd written those words seemed like a stranger now, so frightened, so certain she'd never be more than her scars. She picked up her pen, wrote, "Spring has come, and with it, new life. I am married to the best man I know. I have work that matters, people who respect me, a future I can shape instead of run from. In September, I leave for school, not fleeing but building. I'll learn to be the healer I was meant to be, then return to the home Bo and I are making. Charles was wrong. I am not nothing without him. I am everything despite him. Tomorrow we'll visit his grave, and I'll speak my truth to silent stone. Then I'll come home to warmth and love and possibility. I'll tend the horses that need me. I'll prepare for the journey ahead. I'll love my husband with the whole heart I thought was broken beyond repair. I am Liza Quinn Ramsey. I doctor horses and save babies and know my worth. I am scarred but not broken, careful but not afraid. I am enough, more than enough. I am free." She closed the journal, set down the pen, through the window. Stars wheeled overhead, same ones that had watched her arrive in this town broken and running. Now they watched her choose her future with clear eyes and steady hands. Bo appeared in the doorway, lamplight casting him in gold. "Coming to bed?" "Yes." She crossed to him, took his offered hand. "I'm coming home." They went to bed together in the house that had become a haven, in the town that had become home, in the life they'd built from ashes and trust and stubborn love. Outside, spring wind whispered through new leaves, carrying promises of growth and change and all the seasons yet to come. Liza Quinn Ramsey slept peaceful in her husband's arms, no longer running from the past, no longer afraid of the future. She'd found her place, her people, her purpose. And in the morning, she'd wake to continue becoming the woman she was always meant to be. The scars remained. They always would. But they no longer defined her limits. She was healing, and she was home. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and discuss your thoughts on Liza and Beau's journey. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Wild West Stories 1850. Give this video a like, and hit the hype button to help more people discover these tales of love, survival, and second chances in the American frontier.